to talk a little bit of college football. I know that's crazy when you look at what we were just talking about off air, the rest of the sports media landscape, but we still do believe in talking college football on this channel and on this show.
Listen, you can't be the face of college football without a face. Like, you have to have one. I think that's an important prerequisite we should establish right off the bat. Okay, you have to have a face and a heartbeat. I think that's important. I think there's a lot of layers to this that we could delve into in the next hour. Let's hit it.
Use Tom's face, my voice, and we will become the most annoying entity in the world of college like that ever existed. Which, again, nobody's complaining about. That's why you come and watch us all the time.
Let's jump into things a little quicker this week. Excuse me. I thought this was interesting, and I almost did a solo video on it, but with the holiday weekend, and I spent the day at Disney yesterday, I just figured we'd save it for today. Listen, I am no proponent of defending anything the ACC has to do, but I do try to not rail on them all the time. However, last week when Jim Phillips came out with a statement where he literally said the words, "Hey, I voted on this," talking about the changes to the college football playoff, talking about seeding. We'll get into the specifics of that later. I voted for this. I don't think it's what's best for the ACC, but I do think it's what's best for our sport, best for college football. Moments later, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, who usually does things better than Phillips did, said something very similar. I don't know if their PR person is the same or if they're just coordinating statements, as Sankey maybe said later. But I thought it was hysterical that they would come out and admit that they voted for something that was not in the best interest of their conference. They agreed to something that was not in the best interest of their conference. That is literally part of the reason that Florida State sued them a few years ago, was because they said that they thought that the ACC was not acting in the best interest of its members. Greg Sankey comes out yesterday with a statement of, "Hey, I don't know if we've got coordinated press releases going on over here, this, that, or the other, but I'm in those rooms. I'm asking for ideas. Nobody's giving me anything back. And so we'll just take the lead on this." I'll toss it up to you guys and then we'll kind of pass this back and forth, but is there an infight here? Is this good for the sport? Is it bad? Is Sankey projecting strength while the others are projecting weight? Like, just thoughts on this kind of mini feud that's going on?
Well, I mean, we're going to probably talk about it a little bit later on, but didn't Greg Sankey also say that the SEC intends to leave the NCAA by 2028? Do I have that?
I mean, it's a rumor speculation thing of just throwing it out there so that way they get their way.
I think the bravado surrounding the SEC is at an all-time high. Oddly enough, having not won the national championship in a handful of years, it really doesn't seem to matter. It just like the SEC's ego as a whole, and it's embodied in Greg Sankey, and it's kind of that Kevin Hart joke of sometimes you got to put it on the table. And it sounds like that's kind of what he's trying to do here with the ACC and the Big 12, almost kind of big brother, little brother of like, no one's listening to you. You're not leading the conversation. You don't wield any real power in these discussions, that sort of thing. Shut up and be grateful that we're still here, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the vibe that it comes off as when I hear anything come from Greg Sankey talking about other conferences, that sort of stuff. And the ACC and the Big 12, like, look, what are you really supposed to say? Because it's not like you're getting an equal seat at the table compared to the SEC and the Big 10. We talked about that in the grand scheme of college football, the college football playoff. Like, yeah, they're not getting as many automatic bids, that sort of stuff. So what else are you supposed to say? Like, oh, there's a big win for the ACC and Big 12. It's like, no, like, you're not being treated as equals. So the best you can do is say this is good holistically for the sport. So good luck being a PR person in the ACC and the Big 12 with all this stuff.
Let me ask you guys something. And this is just for the general audience here. What do you think Greg Sankey's job is? You think he's here to ruin college football, to just light a fire underneath every single other commissioner's ass and say, you're going to wield underneath our beck and call because of our revenue distribution gives us the higher advantage? No, his job is to do what's best for the SEC and to look out for the SEC. Just like it's Brett Yormark's job to do what's best for the Big 12, and Jim Phillips' job to do what's best for the ACC, and Tony Petitti's job to do what's best for the Big 10, and every other small commissioner conference that exists in college football. It's to do what's best for their conference, and damn everybody else. But in my opinion, here's the fun part. The fact is that when we talk about college football realignment and expansion and all these other conversations, If you aren't going to be progressive, you're being left behind and eventually going to be shown the door. Like, everyone wants to talk about how Texas and Oklahoma had to join the SEC, how it was unjust that they decided to hitch their wagon and that Greg Sankey welcomed them with open arms. Well, let me make a phone call to you real fast. Hi, Tom. Yeah, guess what? Texas is not welcome to the SEC. I know who's going to make that next phone call. It's going to be Tony Petitti in the Big Ten. He's absolutely going to say, hey, you can come join our conference. You meet all the criteria, and Oklahoma will welcome you too. We're going to strengthen our odds. And then Greg Sankey's going to be flat on his ass looking for another administration job because he didn't do what was necessary. Greg Sankey is not trying to ruin college football. The regulations of current college football status are ruining the sport. Because if we don't have certain factors that work for all conferences, because all conferences aren't aligned properly with Judgement in terms of NIL funds or in terms of revenue distribution, because of the fact that you look at how businesses are spending their money on marketing and advertisement, there's a reason why the Big Ten and the SEC are clear-cut above everybody else. And then we have these conversations about what's the future going to look like with college football playoff expansion and how unjust it is, how unfair it is that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get 4 automatic qualifiers. Well, guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. They're already going to get 4 teams in just because of when you look top to bottom at roster construction, they're going to fit the criteria of the 16 best teams. So by limiting it to 4 teams, it actually opens up a more fair advantage for an ACC team to get a 3rd roster in, or a Big 10 team to get a 3rd roster in, or a Big 12 team to get a 3rd roster in, or maybe a G5 program to beat the odds and go 12-1 and prove that they belong in the conversation. But you want to sit here and blame the SEC because it's an easy scapegoat. The reality is that Greg Sankey is just the voice for all of the athletic directors and the school presidents that exist in the conference. And if he's not answering to them, he's not doing his job properly. If ever before the NFL and the college football world were coexisting, it's now. Because Greg Sankey and Roger Goodell both serve as the mouthpieces for those behind closed doors that are not willing to answer these type of questions, and they get the flack for it. But they get paid a handsome amount to be the whipping boy and, more importantly, the shield that protects all these other conferences. All I'm hearing this week down in Destin is how the SEC is ruining college football. It's ruining college football. But it's Greg Sankey ruining college football. Never once have I heard somebody going after Auburn's president. Never once have I heard anybody going after Alabama's athletic director or Missouri school president or Texas A&M for that matter. Even though they're the ones telling Sankey, if you're not doing what's best for this conference, we'll find somebody that actually will, and we'll pay them a handsome amount to go ahead and not care about what the future of college football looks like. You think that the television revenues are absolutely not caring about college football right now? School presidents are right at that same level. It's like neck and neck on fighting of who is going to earn the most profit and who is going to profit the most in terms of revenue in their back pocket.
I have no problem. I think that in theory, I have no problem with Greg Sankey saying or doing anything that he has done. I think Cole's spot on. His job is to do what's best for the SEC. I think he's also got, with Tony, kind of right there beside him, I think they've got the power. And when you have the power, you are able to wield that. My issue more comes with, and I don't really know in effectiveness what could really be done from an ACC Big 12 side other than just better marketing, maybe better PR. I think it's weird for them to say we voted against the best interest of our conference. I think it would have been better for them to say, no, this is good for us. This guarantees us too, and we can get more with the at-large if we take care of our business. I think that'd be a better look than what they're doing now, than playing sheepishly, hey, we're going to do what's worst for our conference and openly admit that. In effectuality, though, it doesn't really change anything. They don't have the power. If some of this voting was happening 25 years ago, maybe it would look a little different. Maybe there would be more of an equal voting power dynamic. But that's just not where we're at right now, right? Things have changed so much in the sport that we're not there. But I don't, even as an outsider, a non-Power 2 member, right? The people that have a problem with what Greg Sankey is doing, would they do something different just for the love of the game? Would they do something that is actively worse for the SEC if they were in charge of it, just because they love the game so much? Like, oh, this is ruining college sports. This is ruining college football. I mean, it's really not. We'll talk more about, our thoughts on college football and where it stands in general. But I do think Sankey gets a lot of unwarranted heat that anyone else in his seat would literally do the same thing.
Here, let me ask you guys a simple question. We have an opportunity here at College Football Addiction to make $150 million by signing up with a brand new company that's willing to pay us a lot of money. And we have friends that work in this industry, and we have friends that work on YouTube. And I believe that YouTube at this point is the number one entity to get quality football content, especially college football content, because you're not getting that on ESPN, and you're certainly not getting that on a lot of other networks. But even though we're friends with all of those other people and we want to see them be successful, would we not want what's best for us to be the number one entity as the number one college football show? It's the same thing with Greg Sankey. He's doing the exact same thing. I care about college football, but I care about my conference more.
Let's talk a little bit about some college football playoff changes, maybe some of what they're actually upset about, debating about, worried about, what they're voting for their interests are. We've talked about this before, but what very likely seems like it will be our model is this 4-4-2-2-1. And I don't know if this is a hot take, but I do want to throw this up on the screen and let you guys look at it. My hot take on this, I think you guys can see this, teams per conference from Brett McMurphy. Teams, right? Big Ten would have just over 5 a year. The SEC would have just under 5 a year. You average those together and they essentially work out to that. The Big 12 would have just under 3. The ACC would have just over 2. Notre Dame would have made it 8 times. And then the group of 6 would have made it 6 times. Every single team in here is every single conference in here is taking a cut, except for the group of 6. I think that this is a massive win for the group of 6. And I know we don't talk about them much, right? We talk about the SEC and the Big Ten the most, but the group of 6 is just automatically getting a spot when they really only probably deserve that about half the time, 6 of 11 years. And so you want to be mad at the SEC, you want to be mad at the Big Ten, you want to be mad at your ACC and Big 12 commissioners. I don't know that that's really where your anger should be directed, because as Cole said in our last segment, the SEC and the Big Ten are usually going to get 4 or 5 in every year anyway. Just look at the numbers of the last so many years. And then you look at the Big 12 and you look at the ACC and you look at the teams that can realistically compete there, and 2 to 3 is about their max anyway, which is about what they'll get. They'll either get 2 from the AQs, maybe a third in certain years where their teams play up. But the group of 6 is kind of who's stealing from everybody by getting an automatic spot in every year. I'm not trying to hate on group of 6 teams, but whatever. If they're watching this and want to get mad at me, that's fine. I think they're the ones that you should probably direct your anger at. They're the ones that are getting more than they deserve. Every other, even the ACC, they're losing 0.18 every year from an AQ perspective. The Big Ten's losing a full spot per year. The SEC, nearly a full spot per year based on what we've had. I think the group of 5, group of 6 now is kind of who's making this maybe unfair. Not unfair. It's fine that we put a team in that's never going to win a championship. I guess we put them in your playoffs just for fun. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
You know what's always funny is that the second that you see somebody give you factual evidence, everyone who has the biggest opinion has to get a little quiet. Because that's what you have right here.
If anything, I'm looking at it as the flaw that's going to continue with whether it's 12 teams, 16 teams, it doesn't matter, is human judgment dictating the rankings. So before, we were only trying to figure out 4 teams. Now we're trying to figure out 12 teams. Now we're trying to figure out 16 teams. Okay. I mean, who's to say that the people making those choices in regards to the rankings are going to lean more now towards power conferences as opposed to those group of six schools, to your point, because in the past it hasn't mattered. They're kind of like, once we get past the top 4 and the top 12 this past year, it's like, we really don't care where you wind up. It's also kind of some people are still living off of the preseason rankings and they kind of stick to that, or they haven't watched all the games. So they're just kind of like, yeah, we think Michigan's like a slot better than this team or something like that. Yada, yada, yada. That happens all the time. So I think there's going to be more scrutiny, obviously, on the top 16, top 20 as a whole. People are going to pay a little bit closer attention, but then there's more incentive for these people that are figuring out the rankings to get better teams, bigger brands, more eyeballs, all that sort of stuff, because it's clearly set up as a TV product. So I understand the logic to your point, TJ, about like, yeah, a group of 6 schools would have qualified, but also the people making the decisions of who's in, who's out would be looking at this from a very, very different standpoint.
Can we talk about just how lucky Notre Dame is and winner in all of this? Because this is like exactly what you want to hear if you are a Fighting Irish fan this morning about the future of college football. So number one, the seating is drastically changed. No longer are we going to have the 4 automatic qualifiers by conference champions. It's just going to be the 4 best teams.
Love that.
Well, what was the thing about Notre Dame that everyone said when this thing came out? Got to join a conference to get that first round bye. Got to give up that NBC money to go ahead and reunite with the ACC or become one with the Big Ten. Well, they said, you know what, screw it. We don't need that first round bye. We're willing to go ahead and keep our NBC funds so long as we get to play up to the certain standard and host our own matchups and determine our own schedule. Well, now, because of how their scheduling is, because of how Notre Dame plans on building for the future, and yes, even though their schedule and their strength of schedule is going to be less than some teams in the Big Ten, in the ACC, in the Big 12, and certainly the SEC, it still is going to be middle of the pack enough to where an 11-1 record, when they don't have to worry about a conference game, will guarantee them that first round bye every other year. On top of that, they're going to keep all the revenue that they will make in terms of college football playoff funds in their pocket because they are an independent. And in years that they don't end up getting that first round bye, they're likely still going to host a playoff game in South Bend in the snow in December, which gives them a massive advantage. So Notre Dame is the perfect equivalent of sometimes playing the long game. If you have an idea, if you have a thought that can work out, it may not come in the first 6 months. It may not come in 2 years. But give it 4 or 5 years down the line, you're the number one entity on YouTube. Give it 4 or 5 years down the line, you're the reason why you're profiting in $20 million annually to your own school while also getting a first round bye and making sure that NBC is still funneling out cash so that way you continue to be one of the powerhouses in college football. It's a massive win for Notre Dame.
Think about this. I want your just spitfire reaction, both of you. Over a 10, let's say Notre Dame went 9-3, 10 years in a row. How many times are they voted in the top 16 at 9-3?
10 out of 10.
I would say if not 10 out of 10, certainly 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to say 8 was my floor, right? So we all kind of agree that like almost every single time, maybe there would be a scenario where there were just no ranked wins, like horrific two Northern Illinois type losses. I don't know. I'm trying to think of scenarios where they would get left out, right? But yeah, I mean, even though I'm 2 lower than Tom, I think we all agree, like, all they have to do is go 9-3 and they're in the playoffs every single year.
Even
right?
8-4 is
in a 16-team model.
For 16 for sure. Right. 14, maybe a little bit deniable, right? 12, yeah, they'd get left out here and there. But with their brand, that matters. Brand matters. Let's be honest about this. Like, the Notre Dame brand would certainly qualify them. And just the fact of how few games they have to play, right? They don't have to play as many games as everybody else.
They get one fewer matchup that they don't have to worry about it come early December. And they can sit at home and just hope that somebody else messes it up to give them a spot in.
And if they go 10-2, as you mentioned, they'll also likely or 11-1, they'll also a lot of times get a bye. And so it'll take other teams playing 16, 17 games where Notre Dame could skate by with like 15 games, 15, 16, it's a huge advantage to not have to play that game late either.
But I do want to say, just real fast, I actually appreciate Notre Dame sticking to its guns because of they're rewarded for it. They weren't going to push into a corner to say, hey, you have to join a conference to get this done. You have to split the revenue. No, they bet on themselves and they're the biggest winner in all of this. So whether or not you love Notre Dame, whether or not you hate watch Notre Dame, guess what? They are absolutely one of the biggest winners in all of this new format of college football with expansion in the playoffs and the reseeding. And I got to tip my hat to you. Sometimes it's worth betting on yourself and trusting in the long run that you're going to come out on top.
They're the absolute winners. They get the most money. They are a single one of one vote. Greg Sankey's vote is whatever. Scott Strickland at Florida, Greg Byrne at Alabama. He is 1/16 of one vote. Notre Dame has a full-on vote in this thing, right? Like they are one of one. They make the most money. They play the least amount of games. They don't have to share anything. They get more money from the ACC because they're a quasi-member there. They get to handpick their schedules. Yes, they are the absolute winner here. There's no doubt about it. I think the group of six is a big winner. I know, but again, you're counting one of four. You're a 40th winner, right? If you're one of those group of six teams. But Notre Dame is a massive winner in these changes. I don't know that the SEC or the Big Ten. Yeah, this is a good question for you too. Why is the SEC and the Big Ten want 4 AQs? And you've heard some even coaches push back on it somewhat. Like Lane said, just give me the 16 best teams. Now, I hate the committee, right? Like I hate the idea of subjectively trying to figure out who's better. We'll talk about strength of schedule in a minute. I do hate that part of it. But why the 4 and 4? I mean, based on the numbers that I just showed you, isn't it better for the SEC and the Big Ten in a 16-team model to just go bigger anyway? As now all my lights have gone out.
Doesn't it feel
with all the AQs that you could have,
right?
The SEC more often than not would get more teams than that anyway.
Doesn't it?
An anonymous source is telling us these things, right, Tom?
Yes, yeah. Well, I was a little upset about the 4 automatic qualifiers.
Go ahead, dude.
Isn't it a situation that this feels like it's reactionary because of everybody freaking out about this past college football playoff and why the hell did SMU get in over Alabama? I think that's mostly what's driving this situation is what just happened. And now that we're further removed from it, it's less emotional. And 4 kind of makes sense because then even you could look at the Big Ten. It was like, all right, you got Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana in this past year. So it's like, yeah, that's plausible. Like even a 5th, we talked about Illinois being a team that was 9-3, like not nearly as close on the cusp as an Alabama or even a South Carolina, or an Ole Miss. But it was like, hey, like 5, you could make that argument. It's like, no, like, let's make it 4. Let's make it 4, make it even. That way, like we don't have a situation where it's like Alabama pissing and moaning, Ole Miss pissing and moaning, that sort of thing. So that's where my brain went to with it. But this is all going to become obsolete once we get to the 2027 college football playoff and the 16 teams. So, and everybody will complain again.
So here's the way that I view it. The SEC and the Big Ten can literally just say at any point, hey, we're going to do our own thing. Go. Best of luck to you guys in your college football playoff run.
Yep.
So you're going to play our way now. You're going to listen to what we want. And what they want is 4 teams. Now, I actually agree with Lane Kiffin. The 16 best teams should go to the college football playoff. That's a given. But you also have to determine what makes the 16 best teams. Strength of schedule, strength of record, strength of conference, overall record, and a certain other number of things like, say, top 25 wins, what was your overall record at home. Those little things are going to play a factor into it. But the bottom line is that often you will come back and see the SEC is actually going to have 5 teams in this year, and the Big Ten is going to have 4 teams in this year. Or the SEC is going to have 6 teams in this year, and the Big Ten is going to have 5 teams in this year. Well, that's not fair to the little guys in the ACC. That's not fair to the ACC. Okay, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And this is me going to hold your hand to the rest of the college football world when I say this. Clemson, Notre Dame, insert random Big 12 team that has hit stride at the right time, had enough money and resources with NIL, and built a really quality roster with an excellent coaching staff. They're the outliers in the new norm of college football. They're not a part of the rest of the world that can actually compete for a playoff spot. Those are teams that maybe can, with the right amount of resources and with the right amount of sheer luck, punch their ticket to a national championship and maybe win the whole thing. But more often than not, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to win the national title. And it only got strengthened when you added in USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, Texas, and Oklahoma to those 2 conferences and ridded yourself of the Pac-12. It's now becoming a 2-team dance all the way to the finish line with every once in a while someone stepping on in from a different conference. So when you limit it to 4 teams as automatic qualifiers, you're actually opening up the opportunities for the ACC to have one other representative or the Big 12 to have one other representative. And then if you are a Notre Dame team and you go 11-1, you guarantee your spot in the college football playoff because we're giving you the opportunity. Or if you're, say, a 10-2 Tennessee team that didn't have a ranked win, but you only lost to one ranked opponent, well, maybe we're going to throw you in as that at-large bid. And then we'll throw in a G5 school. That way they're welcome. But you don't want to hear the SEC and the Big Ten, oh, let's give it the 16 fairest teams. Because once we make the chart and once we make the addendum of what is actually going to be the fair point for college football, guess what's going to happen? You're going to see half the field, if not over half the field, be riddled by 2 conferences, and everyone complaining that the ACC and the Big 12 only has 1 team, and that's not fair. When the SEC and Big 10 actually said, no, we'll make it fair for you. You're not going far, but we'll make it fair. That way you at least have a shot.
Yeah, it feels like to me, again, as an outsider, that the 2-2 for the Big 12 and the ACC were generous, to say the least. Now, I know based on the last 11 years, that McMurphy tweet that I threw up, yeah, they do make the playoff. About 2 teams a year make the playoff, right? However, projecting ahead, I think there will be years. It could be this year. I mean, shoot, Clemson shouldn't have made it this year, right? Like they got the AQ, but man, there will be, Arizona State wouldn't have made it, right? Like just based on being ranked in the top. So I do think there will be years that we look at it and we say, man, the ACC, the Big 12 was fortunate to have that pair because their second team finished 20th, right? A Big 12. Like, will it shock you at all when we get to the end of the year this year and the Big 12 second team is ranked? Well, this year it doesn't go into effect, but next year when we get to the end of the year and the Big 12 second team is ranked 18th. Can
I actually say yes? Because I'm very high on like 4 teams in the Big 12. That can
I don't know, man. The way they beat each other or the ACC, that's just going to happen.
This is the year I think the Big 12 gets 2. Like last year, the ACC got 2. This year, I think the Big 12 gets 2.
But again, like not to cut you off, TJ, but like who is making the decisions on the rankings? Like the way that you put it together, Cole. Yeah, we should go to a mathematical formula. Didn't we just get done with that with the BCS? Or it was like, oh, this is horrible. It's like, well, we kind of need that again now. So it's the irony of this entire situation.
Don't you love that a computer made the decision on who was playing for the national championship, and now people want AI to determine who's playing for the national championship? Like that, BCS, welcome back, buddy.
But
now you get 16 teams.
Give me a uniform concept of this is how you qualify. I think that's what everybody's asking for. And then it's that, horrible Kirk Herbstreit, deserving versus best argument, which is inevitably going to come around again. As long as we continue to have humans making a subjective decision, we're going to have this debate.
But answer this question. If Illinois plays 5 ranked teams and they lose 2 games, and then BYU plays 1 ranked team and they lose that game, but BYU is ranked further ahead, does that make sense? It doesn't. Like you
it's never made sense in the polls. I mean, even in the polls before the playoff, it never made sense. But that was just subjective people giving their thoughts of who might win in this scenario, right? It's just it's an impossible task. I hate the committee, but I will even admit it's an impossible task.
And I'm not going to sit here and defend Alabama and be like, yes, they belong in the college football playoff at 9-3. You were 9-3, and you lost to Vanderbilt and an underwhelming Oklahoma team. You do not get to be in this conversation. But also, Kalen DeBoer was not wrong when he said, have some of these teams in the college football playoff last year. Play our schedule. Does Indiana beat Georgia? Does SMU beat LSU? Like, those are things. Now, they may end up beating Vanderbilt, so it's a moot point. But still, like, you have to consider those things when we break down deserving versus best. And again, the argument's over with the Michigan game.
That's a perfect cut, and we'll go to strength of schedule, and we'll talk about that a little bit because that has been the big argument. And I don't know that there's just not a perfect way until we either bring back computers or we have more uniform scheduling. Shoot, there's not even, you see these SEC coaches, and I'll rag on the SEC a little bit here so that Cole can get all fired up for me. Yeah. You get these SEC coaches that are, man, let's see them play this schedule. And then I pull up some of these schedules and I saw win totals come out. Texas plays 3 teams on their SEC schedule this year that have below 5 win totals. So not even all SEC schedules are created the same, right? And I'm talking like bottom 12 of all Power 4 teams. They play Arkansas this year, they play Mississippi State this year, and they play Kentucky this year. Not all SEC schedules are created the same. And so I know they go up to the shoe. There are other things that factor in. They got to go to the swamp. They, of course, play at Georgia. There are certainly tough parts of Texas's schedule, without a doubt. However, you look at like Elko complaining about this, and Elko's asked, well, why were you so good in the early part of the year and then you went 1-3 to finish the year? Because they played good teams at the end of the year. In the beginning of the year, they played trash, and they were getting to play Kentucky and Mississippi State and stuff. What do you mean? Why did we fit? Of course, he gave a good PR answer. There's an idea, though, that strength of schedule isn't counted, or it doesn't help other teams of the Power 2 conferences, and it admittedly comes from the SEC mostly. Just look at the last college football playoff rankings. I'll throw it up here while we talk about it. Do you notice that a Notre Dame team at 11-1 is behind a couple of three Power 2 teams with more losses? Do you notice that an 11-1 Indiana team is behind a couple of teams with 2 losses in the rankings? I do think strength of schedule matters. I do think it's factored in. I do think it's a bit of a misnomer when people say, oh, strength of schedule, why are we playing all these tough games if it doesn't matter? But there has to be a point where your schedule can be tough, but if you just keep losing against that tough schedule, there has to be a dividing line, right? And I know the SMU Bama argument will always come up. Would SMU have won in a head-to-head against Bama? I mean, I don't think so, but I don't think that there are 15. I don't think that there are 90 teams that would have won against Bama, but eventually your results on the field do have to matter. And I think that's what's so tough is, yeah, Bama probably was one of the best 12 teams in the country last year. However, Bama could have lost that Georgia comeback that they lost to, and I still would have taken them head to head against SMU, right? 8-4 Bama, I probably would have taken head to head against the SMU. But there has to be a point where we say, yeah, your schedule was tough, but you just kept losing against it. Bama could have. What do you think about that, Cole? Bama 8-4, SMU 12 or what did they finish? 11-2. I take Bama head to head, but I don't put them in the playoff because your resume has to matter too.
And that's the entire point when it came to the South Carolina versus Alabama argument. South Carolina was playing better than Alabama down the stretch, but they did lose the head-to-head.
Right.
And was it a close call, and was it nearly an overtime game? Yeah, I mean, like there was a lot of things that could have gone in favor of South Carolina in that matchup to where the head-to-head didn't matter. But head-to-heads have to matter if you really want to keep that as part of the conversation. Ole Miss, in my opinion, had just the strength of an argument being 9-3 because of they beat Georgia. And they beat Georgia at home, and they thwarted Georgia, and they were in control of that entire game when Alabama allowed Georgia to come back. But then you also have to throw in, well, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, you lost to Kentucky. You lost to LSU, Bama dismantled LSU. Yeah. So those are things that have to be a factor in the conversation, but it's not the only thing. Can you throw out that graphic just one more time, though? Because this is the reason why I look at strength of schedule all the time. And it's really important to bring it up this way, in my opinion. It's like extremely important. So Georgia, Texas, Penn State were all ranked ahead of Notre Dame. When you look at their scheduling, Penn State had the 38th ranked schedule. Texas had the 32nd ranked schedule. Georgia had the 3rd ranked schedule in college football. Every single one of them had at least one ranked win. Notre Dame had one ranked win with the 57th ranked schedule. Ohio State had the 26th ranked schedule at 10-2. Tennessee had the 21st ranked schedule. Indiana and Boise State came in with the 65th and the, if I'm not mistaken, 89th ranked schedule in college football. So no kidding, strength of schedule is going to matter. It can't be the only deciding factor, but everything needs to be accounted for. And unfortunately, when you look at the current status of college football right now, because of everything is not mixed in the middle and because everything isn't fair when it comes to your overall revenue distribution and rankings and ranked matchups, somebody is going to be left out. Now, I was a proponent as an SEC. I'm the voice of the SEC on this channel. I'm going to defend this conference till hell and high water because it's the best conference when it comes to ranked matchups week in and week out. But Alabama did not belong in the playoff last year. They didn't. You have to set a precedent. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean you can't beat Indiana or SMU or even, God forbid, a Notre Dame for that matter on a given field. I'm not saying those things. They all could have happened. But at some point, The wins on the field against the ranked opponents have to matter, just like the losses against the ranked opponents. If Alabama goes 10-2, but they beat Vanderbilt, they beat Tennessee, they beat Oklahoma, and they lose to Georgia and LSU, this is a moot point.
Yeah.
But it's the type of games that you play are the ones that are going to matter. SMU, despite playing 2 ranked opponents all year, and it was close calls in both, dismantled the weaker opponents. They got in the playoff for that reason. That's it.
The other thing that I think is really big on the SMU point specifically, and something that I think when we look at this graphic again, which I'll throw up one more time, you look at the teams that were behind, like that were ahead and behind. Why I think Penn State and Texas finished ahead of Notre Dame is because the committee didn't penalize them for losing a conference championship game. And I think they applied the same exact, if we said, hey, they're better than Notre Dame heading into conference championship weekend, we're not penalizing them because they qualified for an extra game. And I think the committee applied the same exact logic when SMU lost in a heartbreaker to Clemson. They said, hey, if we had them ranked to get ahead of Alabama going into this Clemson matchup, we're not penalizing them for qualifying for an extra week. And that is a precedent that I think is not only good for college football, I think that was the right way to do it. We're not going to penalize you because Tennessee got to take the week off, right? Josh Heupel and them didn't have to play in Atlanta on that first week in December. I think that they said we're not going to penalize teams that qualify for their conference championship if they're already in a playoff position. And I think that's the right thing for college football.
Same with Ohio State.
And the important thing that we learned is that if you shit the bed against a group of 5 team at home, Northern Illinois, it doesn't matter. Have a nice season.
I mean, to be fair, they did beat everybody else.
They beat everybody else, but like that black eye just doesn't exist, you know.
Oh no, that's the problem. Like that's one of those times when you look at college football for the ranking specific.
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame never should have been in the running, but then we were 11-1. You lost to Northern Illinois. You never deserved a first round bye after losing to Northern Illinois. That was a moot point right then and there. Be thankful that we let you in the college football playoff to begin with.
So another big topic that's come up a lot, we'll talk about this and then we'll get to a wild card and get out of here, is does college football feel different right now, specifically on Saturday? Certainly for us psychopaths that follow this every single day for 367 days a year, it feels different for us. But for the average fan, does it feel different on Saturday? I think you guys can hear this when I play it. Hopefully you can. If not, I'll still play it for the audience, and then we'll just kind of talk about our thoughts. But I want to play a quick 1-minute clip from Pate's show talking about this, and then I want to get your thoughts, and we'll move on to the wild card after this.
There's Ohio State. Let's say Michigan's in town. And let's say it's midway through the third quarter, and they're deadlocked at 17, and it's 4th and 1 on your own 38-yard line, and they're opting to go for it. Clock's ticking down, huddle breaks, 5, 4, 3, crowd's at full throat. Just pause right there. Is anybody thinking about whether Ohio State had OTA workouts? Is anybody thinking about how much the left tackle's making? You're not. So the point is, the game hasn't really been ruined at all. If that moment feels different, if that moment is ruined, then college football has ruined itself. Does Saturday still feel like Saturday in the fall? Because that's really the great barometer. So my answer is yes, Saturday still feels like Saturday. I think college football is extremely resilient. Like, it is extremely strong. It's the redwood. You could chop a redwood down, but you don't do it with 5 or 10 swings. It'd take a lot to chop down a redwood, all concentrated, all at one spot on that tree. And don't do it because you'll get arrested. But point being, it takes a lot to ruin college football. That's a byproduct of how great it is.
So without me making an Auburn tree joke after his redwood analogy, okay, I think he's got some points here. My quick takeaway is that I don't know what specific number to assign this to, but there's a large portion of college football fans that don't care that we're doing a show today, right? They're not ate up with it like we are on a channel called College Football Addiction, that when you search it on YouTube, it says, do you need help for your any addiction problems that you have? So yeah, a lot of people, maybe 66%, maybe say 2/3 of the people in any given stadium are not as into the weeds of the offseason as we are. They show up, there's 6 or 7 Saturdays a year. They tune in the 5 or 6 other Saturdays. They watch the game, then they move on, right? They watch the NFL in January. They watch the NBA when it comes around at the end of the year. They watch the MLB during the offseason, whatever, right? I think there's a large portion of that. For them, I think it's relatively unchanged. Do they love the way that college football has moved? No, but it doesn't impact them as much. I think he makes a good point in those pressure moments of a 4th and 1 between in the game. Yes. Does it feel pretty much the same? I think it does. Where I think it has changed on Saturdays is, one, who the hell is on my roster? Who the hell are these players? Because you're not developing that 3 or 4 year love with a roster that you have limited turnover with. I do think that has changed. I also think the idea around the meaning of the games, right? We got to the end of that Alabama-Georgia game, which I was at. It was phenomenal. It was incredible. We got to the end of it and we said, that stinks for Georgia, but they'll be fine. They'll probably still win the national championship after this. We got to the end of that Michigan-Ohio State game, and it was like, this stinks for Ohio State. They can't get that monkey off their back. If they get hot, they want to fire their coach right now, but if they get hot, they'll go on and win it. And they did. We literally listened to the broadcasters in one of the greatest games I've ever seen. Georgia and Georgia Tech this year, we literally listened to the broadcasters repeatedly. I counted 8 times that I heard the broadcasters say, well, this game means a lot for Georgia Tech. It doesn't mean so much for Georgia because they're in either way, right? They're going to Atlanta next week. They'll either play their way in or they'll get in as at large, even if they lose that. When you factor those things in, I do think Saturdays feel a little bit different from that perspective. In the heat of the moment on that 4th and 1, sure, Josh is right about this. Not much different. You're not thinking about what contract dispute happened in the offseason or who held out for more money. When you literally have announcers in the game saying, this doesn't really matter for Georgia. They're in either way. But, they certainly want to win a rivalry. But this game doesn't matter. When you have Ohio State losing as a 3-touchdown favorite, I do think it's a little bit different. Do I think it's ruined? Do I think the sport's done? No, I'm still doing this show. I'm showing up every Wednesday at noon. I'm still putting out other content. I'd maybe half agree with him is kind of the way I'd take it. What do you think, Tom?
I also half agree because I know when I go to a tailgate and I crack open a beer in the fall, I'm not thinking about any of this stuff in terms of the business of it. The thing that is slowly and incrementally getting worse for me as a college football consumer, et cetera, is accessibility. And I think that's only going to continue to get worse. Is that can you virtually get any college football game that you want at this point in time based on the streaming platform you have? I'm the psycho doing the quad box every single block of every single Saturday. And then Thursday, I'm watching Maction. I'm an insane person. I will do all that stuff. What was beginning to become illuminated to me this year was the playoffs, to the points that you said. Okay, games meaning something versus meaning nothing in terms of getting somewhere. And then it's the rivalries, the traditions, the history, all that stuff still exists, but it's just a little less than, feels a little bit more like the NFL. The accessibility factor. It's now these individual schools saying hey, we're having a home playoff game. Here's what that costs. And then a week later, there's a game, or a week and a half or 2 weeks later, there's another game. And for instance, Penn State went from playing SMU in State College to playing Boise State in Phoenix to playing Notre Dame in Miami. And fans would love to go to be at all of these games if they can. But many coaching staffs have talked about, hey, we want our fans there because we want their support. They can't afford it.
Yeah.
The amount of money that you're dishing out for NIL and your own tickets and parking, hotels, and all these sorts of things, flights. Now it's getting to a point where I had conversations with loved ones about Penn State. I was like, hey, if they make the national title, I will go all in and I will pay for that. But I cannot afford to go to the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and possibly the national championship. You got to kind of pick one, but you really hope your team makes the last one. So that's my concern overall with the sport, is just that you're slowly going to get priced out if you're not in a certain bracket of society or something like that. But yeah, when I'm watching the games, I'm about the game, and that's my favorite part about it.
From a game perspective, no, college football has not completely changed on Saturdays. For the major conferences, for the favorites of the world, for those that are rooting for big-time programs. And you root for Florida State, TJ. I'm an Alabama grad. Tom is a Penn State Nittany Lion through and through. The game is not changing for us. And in fact, it's actually probably getting a little bit better for us because of when we leave.
Well, don't speak too fast for me.
But when we leave that field on Saturday evening and a loss is on the record, Tom, Penn State, hey, James Franklin can't get the big win. He can't beat Ohio State. He can't beat Michigan. He's always going to lose those games. But hell, just win out and get 10-2. You're going to the college football playoff. Alabama, how dare you lose to Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt of all teams. How dare you think that that's okay to ever lose them? Well, yeah, in this new world of college football where 16 teams are going to make it to the postseason, just go 10-2 and you're good. But for a team like Washington State and a team like Oregon State that doesn't know where it is right now, because they're not a G5 program, but they're also not a Power 4 program, they have to overcorrect all these other little things just to make sure that they stand out in the public eye and they warrant conversation for a bid. That does change the realm of college football. And then people want to complain about how they've gone about recruiting and they've gone about the transfer portal and the type of players that they brought in. Well, they play against G5 competition, so therefore they're actually just a G5 team masquerading with no conference to really call home. It's an insult to them. And the other thing that's really changing in college football is if you're a fan of a G5 program, let's say that you're at San Diego State, and you have one of the best running backs in college football for 2 straight years, and you build a roster around him with multiple offensive linemen and a couple of defensive players that you think could absolutely put themselves in first round or top 64 conversation. And you're looking at Sean Lewis and saying, hey, this is a team that we're competing for that absolutely could make a run. Well, yeah, in the years past you could have, but nowadays what you have to worry about is, hey, your running back is now going off to Michigan on a new NIL deal, and you're just preparing him ahead of time when Michigan didn't want him coming out of high school, but now they want to offer him a little bit more money. Your defensive players are going to the Big 12 or the SEC to be depth pieces. Oh, and that defensive back that you have been hand selecting and recruiting and turning him into an all-star, well, he's now going to become a superstar at Colorado because of Deion Sanders threw him a bag. Like, that's where college football has changed. Like, the sport's not going to go away, and those of us that still love and eat and breathe the sport and call it our sacred haven, we're not going to be the ones affected by it. But the ones that will be are the casual fans that only tune in during the months of August through December and are so sick and tired of watching their team be riddled through the transfer portal and NIL in the offseason that they don't really care about what the results are. The big teams aren't affected because of as long as they just go double-digit wins, they're going to be in the college football playoff. But the teams that we are absolutely enthralled with seeing, I'm a big Conference USA guy. I love MACtion. I love the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated conferences in all of college athletics, in every single sport. Those schools eventually are just going to have to pony up and say, we don't have the resources to keep you. I'm glad that we were able to develop you in your process. Go ahead and win a national title at Alabama at this point, because that's what we are going to see. And that's where college football has changed.
No, I don't disagree. All right, good comment here. Appreciate the super chat. Gary says, and we'll do the wild card rapid fire and get out of here. Just adopt a promotion and relegation system, home and away games for every opponent, and now it's settled on the field. No commissioners, no computers. I think the relegation idea is phenomenal. I actually had somebody message me a pretty good outline of it, and I've been working on putting a video together. May come out this week, may not. But I would not hate as a European soccer fan, I'm okay with the relegation system. It'd be great to watch Florida State fight their way back up after this last year. Also, I'd love it for the schedule reasons, just so we can get more wins. But I don't hate the relegation idea. I don't think we're anywhere close to it, but I would like it.
Just give us the freaking super conference at this point, because that's what we're paying it to.
All right, really quick, and Gary, we do appreciate a ton the super chat. Appreciate the love. Hey, we've got a lot of viewers in here today. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We go live every Wednesday. We're not always this fired up, but pretty close to it. Hopefully we don't disappoint you if you do come back. Hit the subscribe button. Let's do the wild card, which is my favorite segment every week. If you're watching over on X, hundreds of you over there, make sure you go over to the YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. Look for College Football Addiction. All right, ACC win totals: Clemson, Miami, Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech, and then some more. I guess I suck and didn't text these to you guys.
I would love to know.
Let me get them over in your chat. Tom, I think it's your week to go first.
Give me Clemson over 9.5. Again, I am shooting from the hip on a lot of this, and give me UNC under.
You just get one. You just get one to start.
I just get one. Damn it!
Yeah,
don't worry. He can take UNC because I'm not touching that one. Give me Georgia Tech at plus 7.5. I absolutely love the Yellow Jackets. I think that they're going to be a sleeper this year in the ACC. Love Haynes King. Love this defense. Jamal Haynes is one of the most slept on running backs. And then, of course, I am hammering Louisville at plus 8.5. I think that this is the best running back room in all the ACC. I think it certainly has the best running back in Isaac Brown, but you also have Duke Watson. Love the addition of Miller Moss for this offense, and I'm going to preach it until everybody gets on board with me. Colin Lacey. Remember the name. Tattoo it on your arm if need be. He's going to be leading in a lot of categories in the ACC this year for receptions.
Tom, you got 2. Your UNC, when I cut you off, was over or under? Sorry.
Under
Okay.
7.5. I think Jordan Hudson will take down the entire program.
Good for 5 losses.
By the way, June 1st, we have to see if Bill Belichick stays or leaves. Tune in next week. We can't wait for that. Let's see. I will take Wake Forest under 4.5. There's just very little that I look at on that roster that really inspires me necessarily for them to do much in the ACC. And then I'll take Syracuse over 5.5. I like Steve Angeli's game a lot. I don't know why he got so little love from Notre Dame fans in the offseason. I understand they're excited about CJ Carr. That's fine. But I like Steve Angeli's game. I think they have the potential to pick up right where McCord left off.
Okay, so did Tom just take 3 in a row?
No. I was asking about UNC the first time. I ended up just giving him UNC on the first roll.
So he has 4. Okay, cool.
I've taken 4.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to take Duke over. I think that Darian Mensah was one of the best offseason additions for any team out there. It's not that he's a massive upgrade over Malik Murphy, but I do think that he does fit the system that they want to run a little bit more. And I trust the Manny Diaz defense. So I think they can get to 7-5, maybe even 8-4. And then I'm taking the under on Cal. Cal lost a lot this offseason. I know they brought in a new quarterback with Devin Brown, but the Calgorithm is not going to be bolstering their way into a college football game day conversation this year. They may end up winning an upset game here or there, but they're not going to be in that bowl eligible range. Justin Wilcox going to be feeling the pressure this year.
Tom, you get 2?
This one is entirely for you, TJ. First, I'm going to take Miami over 9.
Oh.
And I'm going to take Florida State under 7. I have no information to back this up. I don't know what their schedules look like. I did it solely to annoy you.
Cole, you win this week. What are your next?
Finally, I would have won. It only took it to pissing you off. Give me at 6.5. I think that Eli Holstein's a very good quarterback. Last season started off the year undefeated before he got hurt. I think that having Cade Bell back as your offensive coordinator is going to do wonders for the passing attack. And then a part of me just somehow believes that NC State is going to be better than 6-6. I like Noah Rogers. I like CJ Bailey. I like the fact that you are at least kind of starting fresh in that position. Justin Jolie's one of the more underrated tight ends in college football. I'm a big NC State, I'm a closet NC State fan, so I'm going to be riding with the Wolfpack Ride or Die this year. Give me them at 6. I think that's an easy 6-6 win.
Tom, you get 2, then we'll go 1-1-1 for the last 3.
I think I will. If I take Virginia, what's the ruling on that over under? It's like
so 6, you just cash out. It
cash
doesn't
out.
hurt or help you.
I think that's perfectly Virginia, right? To go 500. So I'll take Virginia Tech. Let's say under, and then
Virginia Tech or Virginia?
Virginia, excuse me, Virginia. That's what I was referring to. Virginia at 6, and then I'll take Boston College under, but I think they wind up at 5. It's gonna be narrow.
Okay, Cole, you get 1.
Screw it. I'll take SMU. I still believe enough in what we're seeing from Kevin Jennings. I do like that Derek King is his quarterback's coach. I think they're still going to have a good run game despite losing Brashad Smith. Decent defense. 8.5 feels right on that line. I think that they're about a 9-win team this year. Maybe going to lose a game that they probably shouldn't, but they're also going to get an upset win.
Tom, VT, and Stanford.
I will take Virginia Tech over 6.5. I think Brent Pry, this is a year where they can attempt to rebound. They've certainly lost some pieces. I don't know. I just feel better about Virginia Tech this upcoming year for some reason.
3 is such a low number. What do you got, Cole?
Give me the under. I don't trust it.
I
Cal,
disagree. I would take the I think Frank Reich and what's
okay,
his name?
then switch to
And-
me. Give me the under for Virginia Tech, and you take the over on Stanford, because I don't believe in Frank
Hold on, I'm looking
Brett
at
Prime all the shit.
Stanford. Yeah, this is a little thin.
I think under's the right call there.
I think under's the right call. It's right at that 3-9.
But would you be shocked if Andrew Luck and Frank Reich pulled off something surprising? Not something crazy like,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I mean,
something
they could get to 4. Yeah, I mean, they just need to upset one team to get to 4.
One team to upset, but I just don't see it this year.
That's what's hard about like the massive ones. Like Florida State is going to win, in my opinion, right? Like between 6 and 8 games. Like it would surprise me if they won 5. It would shock me if they won 9. So like that's what makes them hard. Stanford just has to upset one team to hit their over, right? Because they're going to win the other. So yeah, that's what makes those massive or minor ones very difficult to do. That's why
I just don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do at wide receiver. I don't know what they're going to do at the defensive line. A lot of pieces left when you fire Troy Taylor. Like if you have Troy Taylor as your coach, I probably would take the over and go 4-8. But I'm not.
They probably would. Yeah, they probably would have been a 4.5 if that was if they still had him and hadn't lost him. They probably would have been a higher. They would have made it tougher that way too. All right, the Power 2. We did it in and out. We're less than an hour again, even though we're a little bit after 1. But make sure that you are subscribed. We will be back again. Gary, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the love. And we'll be back with you guys. Tom Hannafin, Cole Thompson. You can find him on social media. Just search the names. TJ Pittinger, of course, here on College Football Addiction. We will be back next week for the Power 2. Appreciate you guys for hanging out.